Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. This is my first Bengals video since that loss to the Kansas City Chiefs, and to be honest with you, the Bengals blew it. Just call a spade a spade. The Bengals blew it on offense, defense, and special teams on the last possession of each of those positions. So it's tough, it really is, but at the same time, there is extremely a lot to be excited about with this Bengals team, and I'm very excited about it. They have $49.4 million in cap space this summer or spring. That's the sixth best in the National Football League. Joe Burrow will most likely be extended. You'll probably check your phone one day and it'll be like, oh yeah, Joe Burrow gets blank amount of money. It's going to be a lot of money, by the way. But the good news for the Bengals is that's going to be tacked onto his rookie deal. Just like Patrick Mahomes, just like Kyler Murray, it puts the Bengals in a powerful offensive position. And, you're coming off a Super Bowl appearance and a AFC Championship appearance. Maybe it's not the results you exactly wanted, but they're in a very fine spot. Very, very, very fine spot. Now, we're going to talk about all that in tonight's video. If you guys enjoy it, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button. I do want to say real quick, thank you to every Bengals fan, and if you've watched these videos since I started making them a couple of months ago, I appreciate you guys so much. It was a great season, and seriously, at 12-4 with one of the best offenses, one of the best defenses, with everything considered, the future is just so bright in Cincinnati. I keep reading all this propaganda saying, if Deshaun Watson figures it out, the Bengals couldn't have a run for their money, and it's like, I'm not quite sure about that one. So, bottom line is the Bengals are going to be aggressive this summer. Spring, once again, we made that. But anyways, summer and spring, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be very aggressive because you have a ton of cap space to work with. Now, first things first, free agents on their team. All right, I have about 6-ish players here that I've circled and been like, I want them back, and I know most Bengals fans either want them back or are open to having them back. And keep in mind, we're going to be posting Bengals videos for the entire offseason, whether it's the draft, free agency, camps, whatever it's going to be. So stay tuned, hit that like button, hit that sub button for more Bengals and daily NFL content. Now, it's going to start at the safety position, right? Now, the Jesse Bates offseason last summer, you could honestly easily forget about it, the way he puts his body on the line and how he just has this kind of all-in mentality at every point this past season. Jesse Bates III is a phenomenal talent, all right? And he probably just had the best year of his career. I still have a hard time imagining that the Bengals and him are going to come to an agreement, especially after last offseason. Now, technically, the Bengals did draft his replacement in Dax Hill, but I think we all would agree we all want Jesse Bates III back. Now, you also have Von Bell as a free agent. Now, I do think Von Bell, as opposed to Jesse Bates, is a lot more likely as far as returning back to Cincinnati. And real quick, just to keep it a buck once again, no matter who you guys want, no matter who Bengals fans want, blah, 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 doesn't matter. Not every player everybody wants is going to be retained. And I think we all understand that, right? Now, Von Bell is the other safety. He had 4 interceptions this year. I would love for Von Bell to be back, and I actually anticipate him to be back. Now, staying on the defense, linebacker Jermaine Pratt. It's a big question mark. It's a very big question mark. Jermaine and Jesse are the two guys I kind of have circled with question marks where it's like, I'm not quite sure. Jesse Bates, 4 interceptions. Jermaine Pratt, the linebacker, 2 interceptions. 99 tackles. So these are 2 really talented players. The good news is this. With the linebacker position, there are a bunch of studs out there in free agency. So if you do, in fact, lose Jermaine Pratt, there's a lot of studs out there. All right. Now, next up, lastly on the offense, we have Eli Apple. All right, the cornerback. He had a solid season for sure. 8 pass deflections, no interceptions. I don't think statistics really do Eli Apple much justice. He's 27 years old. He's definitely about to get paid. And Eli Apple's one of those guys where I have a question mark around him as far as what do Bengals fans think about bringing back Eli Apple, regardless of if Eli comes back or not. The way I see it are the cornerback is still a huge need. Regardless, like I said, it just doesn't matter. It's still going to be a big need and something I anticipate this Bengals team to heavily look into, whether that's in the draft or free agency, probably more so free agency. You could look into, and we'll see him in the Super Bowl, James Bradberry. He had an all-pro season. He came to the Eagles. It was kind of the come-from-behind story, the true underdog story of the year. 17 pass breakups, 3 interceptions. To be honest with you, those statistics, those are more face level. They don't really do him any justice, but you do have the question mark with Eli Apple as far as returning back to Cincinnati. Now, offensively, I have 2 big names down, and it's Hayden Hurst. And Hayden Hurst, much like, to be honest with you guys, a lot of these Bengals players are, it's somebody, and I know he missed a bunch of games, not a bunch of games, he missed 4 games. 52 catches, 414 yards, 2 touchdowns, 8 yards per catch. He's one of those players where, once again, I don't think statistics do him justice. I really don't. He became and is one of Joe Burrow's more reliable targets. So I love Hayden Hurst, and I think it was really clear when he got injured later on in the regular season just how impactful of a player he is. So I anticipate fully Hayden Hurst to be back in a Bengals uniform next season. Now, lastly on the offense, these aren't all the free agents. Like I said, we'll cover the Bengals all offseason. Samaje Perine. All right, and there's also a pretty big lingering question behind Joe Mixon. He had 8 rushes for 19 yards in that conference championship game against Kansas City. We talked about all week. We talked about it all season. I have Joe Mixon and I have Samaje Perine. What's the issue running the ball? Now, granted, the offensive line was decimated towards that last game, and we'll talk about that a little later on in the video just next up here, but Samaje Perine, regardless of if they cut Joe Mixon to save $10 plus million, which isn't all that crazy, had a pretty bad year, can't lie. He did have some nice flashes, but it wasn't a great year. Samaje Perine is a guy, when Joe Mixon went down with that concussion, you kind of fully realized, and true Bengals fans knew this, but you just really, it was kind of doubled down that, okay, yeah, Samaje Perine is legit. He is a very nice complimentary running back. He can run the ball, he can catch the ball, and if our starting running back goes down, whether it's Joe Mixon or who else, Samaje we can rely on him. The big question with Samaje is a team going to pay him to be running back 1? That remains to be seen. It's only February 3rd. We'll discuss all this later on. Now, the needs for this Bengals team, and we'll briefly touch on this because we're getting a little late on the video. Cornerback, you have the defensive tackle. The edge spot, you have guard position. And then the running back is kind of just, like I said, a big question mark. Who quite knows what's going on. We talked about James Bradberry. A couple of offensive linemen, Donovan Smith from Tampa Bay. You have Orlando Brown Jr. from Kansas City. I anticipate heavily Cincinnati is going to put in a lot of money and or a lot of draft capital into that offensive line, as they should. Joe Burrow cannot get sacked for a NFL high. It's unacceptable. It's not going to work. It was exposed against Kansas City. I get Kansas City finished number 2 in total sacks, but it simply does not work for me. Now, edge rushers, there's guys like Melvin Ingram out there. Tight ends, there's guys like Dalton Schultz out there. We'll see how those go in free agency. We'll go into the draft. We'll see what it is. Speaking of the draft, there's a couple of positions where you have the safety. It's basically everything we've been talking about in today's video. The safety. Do you go Cam Smith in round 1? Do you go with an offensive lineman? Do you go with a cornerback? Do you go with a tight end in later rounds? Do you go with a running back in later rounds? Those right there are the 5 positions I think they'll hit. So let me know what you guys are thinking. This was kind of just a broad Bengals offseason video for you guys. If you have any video recommendations, let me know. But as always, hit the like button, hit that sub button for more Bengals content. And as always, drop some opinions down below. Peace.